as we promised, we are excited to be joined by a man of many talents, Mayor of Knox County, Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. wrestling superstar, phenomenon, champion, Kane. I don't know a better way to intro it. I just want to make sure I got it right,
Yes, sir.
so I didn't get my arms and legs ripped off. But no, in all seriousness, Mayor, number one, thanks for joining us. It's an honor to have you here. You're the first wrestler. We've interviewed some guys that have been in the political/sports realm a little bit, but you are the first professional wrestler that we've ever interviewed, and you're the same size as David Cone, so this is a great time already.
He's got me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Definitely.
Looking forward to it.
Well, look, I want to start. Obviously, you've got so much going on, being on the political side of it now, but I've got to start, obviously, with your wrestling career it's more decorated than a Christmas tree in Times Square. We can go down the list of all the accomplishments, but my main question that I wanted to ask you is everything that I grew up watching wrestling and watching football and all these other sports, the preparation to be able to go out there and perform in your arena, in the wrestling arena. It's just amazing hearing the stories of guys, what they had to do to their bodies to get them ready to go, and just the beating that you guys take. Can you just talk about what that taught you, having to prepare for that, for your life? Like what goals you use that for, basically?
Right. So there's no off season in wrestling. WrestleMania was our big event. It was like the Super Bowl, but we had a show the next day.
Yeah.
So you could never sit back and, kind of like in other sports, be like, oh, we won the championship. Now we have the off season to enjoy that. Yeah. Or we need to do some work in the off season to get to where we want to go. So that's one of the biggest differences. When I was there, it was common to be on the road 250, 300 days a year, in a different place every night.
Wow.
That travel schedule was really, really grueling, but the philosophy was always, we're here for a reason, to entertain the fans. They pay good money to see us. So it was always, the show must go on, and always in a different place. And now it seems like a blur, just traveling and doing that for so long all the time. But as far as life lessons, that's to me, and I came to this later in my career, is the fact that you're adding value to people's lives, right? And you're touching people emotionally and have the ability to kind of take them out of their problems and bring them into this fantasy world that you're creating. And I realized that's actually the greatest blessing of my career.
And you've done so many great things with the fame that you accrued. Obviously, what you're doing now in Knox County, and just kind of the different arenas that you've been able to affect because of that. I know you have a ton of highlights that throughout your career, a ton of high points, obviously. What is one, or maybe a couple, that you look back on now, and that's one of your fondest memories, whether it was a certain event that you guys did, whether if it was a certain match against a certain individual? I know you had feuds on top of feuds. I mean, I don't know who's had more feuds, you or Steve Harvey, in his family feud. But what would you say is one of the top highlights that you remember, just off the cuff?
So I had really 3 matches, and it was when I won my first World Championship against Stone Cold Steve Austin. Everyone forgets that I won that because that was the same night that Mick Foley went flying off the Hell in the Cell cage.
Yeah.
So, but that, when my first WrestleMania match against Undertaker, and then also the Inferno match against Undertaker, is very unique. But the greatest experience actually happened pretty much after my wrestling career was over. I was at Thompson Bowling Arena one night for a concert that was there with my wife, and I'd gone out into the concourse to get popcorn and a soda, and this lady comes up to me and she shows me a picture on her phone. It was me and this little boy in a hospital bed. And I remember I visited at Children's Hospital, and that was her son. He'd been there. That was the last picture she'd ever taken of her son.
Wow.
So when I'm talking about being able to impact people emotionally, that was the greatest thing, because all the other stuff is awesome. But the fact that you can do that, you're blessed to do that for someone, is amazing. And something, again, I didn't really realize that until later in my career. I think I would have had a different perspective on a lot of things if I'd have thought that way from the beginning.
Well, that's the type of stuff that's worth more than a championship, worth more than the fame and all that. That's
incredible, man. For starters, I'm not a true 7-footer. Coming in about 6'7", something like
Yeah.
that. But what do you think my chances are of joining the Brothers of Destruction?
They're not good.
Yeah.
They're just not good.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Let it go. Dude. It's not
All right,
There's
we can get over it.
There's another voting member. He has veto power over
Yes, thank
everything.
you.
Okay, the Undertaker.
The mayor has
Sorry,
spoken.
man. I can put in a good word, but ultimately,
Please
it's up
put
to
in a
him.
good word, but not good. I mean, speaking about The Undertaker, you know, you're taking me back to my childhood now. WWF, I mean, I love WCW as well, but WWF was the thing to me. You, Undertaker, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the time The Rock spinning there. Like, it was such a cool time for me personally to watch you guys, like you said, go and be on the road 200 plus nights a year. You know, how much of what I was watching in my childhood was real?
Depends on how you define real. I sound like Bill Clinton now.
It's still real to me, damn it.
No, obviously it's predetermined, okay, just like any other movie or TV show. But the action and the danger and the drama are real. And I was very fortunate. I only had a couple of serious injuries. I broke my hand and just some other things that put me down for a short period of time. But I saw some very serious. I saw broken necks and just everything you could possibly imagine. So what's happened, I think, is when we kind of pulled the veil back and said, okay, this is entertainment, well, then everybody thought, oh, anyone can do this. It's not, you don't have to be tough to do this. Well, it was like playing football. I mean, you still got hit pretty hard and you had to be able to take that kind of abuse. So that's kind of how I look at it, is not necessarily the question, is all this real? Is it good entertainment?
Yeah.
And are the people that are doing it, are they skilled athletes? And I think in both those you could say,
And that's why I phrased it like that rather than saying, hey, is wrestling fake? And I think Darren Aronofsky did a great job of this in his film, The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. I'm not sure. Did you see that film?
I didn't.
Okay.
And the reason I didn't was because I've kind of seen it in real life.
A little too real.
Exactly.
I thought it was great. I mean, the character in that was once a former superstar on the highest levels like you, but still, by the time you're following that character around, he's down doing this every single day for very little money on the lower circuits, which I know you came up on the lower circuits. I just thought it was incredible to give those guys a shout out, because when you talk about, the outcomes may be staged or set up in advance, but flying off the top rope with the possibility of breaking your back, that's not fake.
Yeah, exactly.
Without a doubt.
Well, I'm interested to know, when you went through your wrestling career, and what made you, from wrestler to politician is not something you see every day. What made you want to get into politics, or did it something that naturally happened?
It was kind of something that naturally happened. I've always been attracted to government and politics and those sort of things. Social studies was my favorite subject in school. So I've always found that kind of fascinating. But really for me, it was once I got out in the real world and I realized how things really work, I'm like, I want the government off my back. Right? It's always been my main focus. And I think actually one of the biggest dangers that we face is kind of this, this idea that socialism is a great thing, big government's a great thing. It's not. I've been around the world and I've seen where it's been implemented other places, and it's very destructive. So for me, I've had a wonderful life. I grew up on a farm in rural Missouri. My family didn't have a whole lot. My mom and dad were really hardworking people, but it just seemed like sometimes we were barely keeping our head above water. I always wanted to be a professional athlete because they were rich and famous, right? And I was playing football in college, blew out my knee, ended my football career, trying to figure out something that I'd be good at, that I'd like and utilize my skills, being a big guy and a good athlete. And I kind of fell into professional wrestling. And I mean, I've been blessed with an unbelievable life. And the reason for that is because we live in a country where if you're willing to put in the work, find what you're good at, and overcome obstacles, I think that pretty much anyone can be successful and live the American dream. And I want to make sure that that is still there for my kids and their grandkids.
Amen. Love it.
Yeah, well, in Knox County now, obviously, been here in Tennessee for a while. Josh Heupel seems like he's got Tennessee out of the darkness. I know last year wasn't exactly what Tennessee fans wanted.
We're not upset
coming.
about
Listen,
that.
if that's a low year now, that's a high class problem.
That's really what kind of everyone expected.
Yeah. So now going into this next year with Nico at quarterback, seeing the depth that Coach Heupel's added and really across the front lines, that's where you're going to bridge the gap between the Georgias and the Bamas and the Ohio States and Michigans. But how excited are you for this new era of Tennessee football, and watching Nico, who in the bowl game, you talk about tall guys that are athletic.
Yeah.
That's one right
Man, he
there
looked
for
good.
sure.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I moved to East Tennessee in 1995. They won the national championship. UT did in 1998. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Here we go.
Yes.
And then the next 2 decades happened.
Sorry. Come back. Come back.
Exactly. But I think that definitely on the rise again. And yeah, when you're talking about a 9-4 season being, it was okay.
Yeah.
Right. That is a far cry from where we were just a few years ago. And I think the most impressive thing about Hypo last year was we think of, just run and gun, fast-paced offense. Well, then last year, he realized that wasn't going to work. They turned into a running team of all things, a Josh Heupel team being a great running team. But that just tells you the talent that he has as a coach. A lot of coaches, this is the system, and everybody has to conform to it, even if their skills are not necessarily meant to be part of that system. He's smart enough to understand, to take the different players and mold the system around them so that it works. And then you have a talent like Nico. I think within the next 5 years or so, they'll be competing again for the SEC championship, and hopefully, they'll be back in the national championship picture in the not too distant future. I think that's a possibility.
But the playoff is only going to help.
It's only going to help.
Especially a team like Tennessee.
And heck, down the end of the year, you're 8-3 with a chance to go maybe 9-3 at the end. You can factor yourself in that playoff and still play for the Natty. It's a great point you bring up about Josh Heupel. And we talk about this all the time, that the coaches that are not only able to get to the top but stay there, they're malleable. We talk about Nick Saban. Yeah, Nick Saban he was very compartmentalized in what he did. Everybody was accountable, knew what everybody was doing, but he didn't like to hurry up, no huddle, complained about it, realized it wasn't going to change, went and hired the best in the world at it, and became the best at it. Right. I think malleability at the top and Josh Heupel being able to manipulate that system to fit his personnel, that's the move. That's why I feel like everybody, there's the old saying, everybody should have to, wait tables for 6 months just to see what it's like. I feel like everybody should have to coach. Guys that want to coach at the high level in college football need to coach high school for a couple of years because that's what you got. You have to adjust to what you have. Now, certain high schools like Blaine went to, they recruited.
Spanish Fort?
What? Yeah. I'm just, again, allegedly.
That means they did.
Allegedly. But no, I agree with you 100%. Staying on the football front, what do you think about NIL and everything that's kind of going on in the expanded playoff? And we're in a brand new age.
Yeah, we really are. I'm a fan of the expanded playoff. I don't know if it solves all the problems because you go to 4 to 8 or 12, well, then someone's still going to get left out that they can make an argument.
For sure.
That's been like that in the basketball tournament. You
69,
64, and it keeps on going more and more. But it's a lot better because I do think that there were some teams, like last year, Georgia's left out. They were dominant all season long. Alabama, which is a great team itself, beats them, and all of a sudden they get kicked to the curb. That just doesn't feel right. But then you could also make that argument for a lot of teams. NIL, man, it's just changed everything. But we have to accept that at the level of SEC teams and other Power 5 major conferences, this is no longer amateur athletics.
For sure.
Everybody's making money off of these kids, right? The coaches are making money. The universities are making money. The networks are making money. The local radio station is everybody's making money except for the kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what the answer to this is, but apparently neither does the NCAA. They're paid to do this because they have completely messed it up. They're trying to apply the old rules, and now they're retroactively saying, oh, Tennessee, you shouldn't have done this. Well, that was the rule at the time, and they were abiding by that. So it's just, I'm not a fan of the NCAA. I think that they're very bureaucratic, and they treat different universities
selective punishment.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
Well, and to me, and to stay on this point, because again, I know it's something that obviously any sports fan is involved in, especially obviously college football. I have no problem with anybody making money off their name, image, and likeness. Hell, we make money off our name, image, and likeness, and I can't run a 4.4. I can't do the one thing Joe Milton can do and throw the ball as far as that. But I always thought that NIL was between, and this is the example we always use, if Bryce Young at Alabama wants to do a deal with Dr. Pepper or vice versa, Dr. Pepper's people reaches out to Bryce Young's people because you can now have representation and you do a deal. Well, we replaced the NCAA, who was really the middleman, let's be honest, with these collectives. Now it's all thrown together and it's all swampy and it's all soupy. But when you let something out of the bag, like the transfer portal, like NIL and all this stuff with no rules, don't be surprised when the monster comes out and starts ripping villagers apart. It's just part of
that
the
was the
deal.
biggest mistake the NCAA ever made was inserting themselves between the athlete and whatever corporations or brands, really, not even corporations, local brands wanted to do business. I mean, the way I put it is no one's ever loved college football because they said, oh, those kids out there aren't getting paid. That's not the reason they love it. There is a purity element to the sport which could potentially be lost if you start implementing revenue share. But again, it's we're free market people. And so I think that's the way you're going to see this go. Now, in terms of the lawsuit between the NCAA and the state of Tennessee, do you have any information on where that's at now and what the next steps are?
I don't. You guys probably know more than I do. I follow it in the news. They made their opening arguments, and I believe the judge, who I think is very well regarded as a very thoughtful judge, basically said, "You've given me a lot to think about."
Yeah.
The thought is that this will not the Sherman antitrust law is the big issue for the attorney generals. Basically, they're saying that the NCAA is not abiding by that, and the judge indicated that he agreed with that. So we'll see where it goes, but. I don't have any information other than what you all would have.
Well, it seems like there's going to be new antitrust lawsuits on every single issue or every guardrail or rule that the NCAA tries to implement until we get to a point where the athletes can collectively bargain for themselves. We may not have gotten there if they could have just made money separately on their name, image, and likeness.
We have was it the Dartmouth basketball team that the judge said
they tried, which that scenario I went off on because they're not driving revenue. They're not making a profit.
They're a lemonade stand.
They're not making a profit for their school. So if Dartmouth may just foot the bill and say, we're operating at a net loss. I mean, the WNBA operates at a loss too. The NBA foots the bill on that. And I wouldn't say, hey, we need to do away with the WNBA because it doesn't drive a profit. Dartmouth may end up doing that. But if those kids really want to have a lesson in business and the way the economics works, Dartmouth could go in and say, okay, well, why wouldn't we just save the money we're spending here, spend that on a profit-driving sport like football, and we eliminate the basketball program.
Yeah. Well, it's and staying in the sports realm, something that we wanted to talk about, and Blaine, we talked about this all week. David did a get off my lawn on it. Is obviously that's probably my favorite.
Get off my lawn
of the
segment.
week is get off, because David's really 100 years old. He's
David's
that's
That's why I want to join the Brothers of Destruction.
Yeah, like you see him out there. See him out there for
Sorry.
panning for gold and sitting on the porch with a shotgun.
Yeah. Old prospect.
Men and women's sports. I can't even believe that we're having to discuss this. We have so many other problems that we need to be attacking. It's such a waste of time and energy, in my opinion, because it's such a common sense thing. We did the movie Lady Ballers. You've been in horror films before. You're in See No Evil. We know how that works in the acting realm. But just how crazy is it looking at? Can you imagine you and a woman out there, and you having to go full speed and wrestle against a biological woman? I just don't understand it.
Right. In WWE, back in the day, we would have those matches, but there were also obviously there were guardrails, and like you said, it's not going to be full speed. It's not because the women weren't great athletes. It's just they didn't have the size and the power, and frankly, their bodies just wouldn't absorb the kind of punishment that the guys could. I mean, that's just the fact of the matter, right? They're more flexible. They could do some stuff that we couldn't do, but at the same time, like you said, I mean, when I was at my prime, I was 320 pounds. I bench pressed 525.
Flex on them, man.
Yeah, I mean, but to put me in with a woman who's 5'4" and 110 pounds. And to think that we're really going to compete in that realm, it's not going to. Someone's going to get hurt.
It's absolutely not.
Yeah, and it's about safety. I mean, that's what we did a clip today on the show. I forgot what it was. A little basketball game, and there's a guy playing on a women's team. Was it high school day?
High school. Yeah.
High school.
It was high school.
I saw that.
And it got so bad that the other team had to forfeit because of injuries. And then the team that had to forfeit came out and said, well, they're fine with it because they care about the safety of their own players. And I'm just confused. At what point is this going to be normalized? Because I think this is what they're doing. I think they're going to middle schools and they're going to high schools and letting boys play in women's sports. So by the time they get older into the college, well, it's almost like it's normal. Why won't women come out and stop this? Because it can't be us. Like, it can't be me, David, and Jake, and guys who look like us who are going to come stop this. It has to be the women in the sport.
My daughter has a daughter herself, and I asked my daughter, how would you feel if my granddaughter, Madison, had to compete against boys in certain sports? And she's like, there's no way. It's just, it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right? And so we do all this stuff with like Title IX to say that women's sports, and that they should get funding just like men's. Okay. But now we've like completely destroyed that by saying, well, it's all kind of men's sports now, which doesn't, none of it makes any sense. And also the reason that we have different divisions, just like weight class, expertise level and all that, is for competition and for safety.
Yeah.
Right? And we've done that like throughout human history.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're throwing all these things out and saying that, oh, it's no big deal and everybody compete against everybody else. Well, what are we going to throw that out in boxing or MMA or
what happens with the CTE
things?
stuff? Everybody's talking about CTE in football. Hey, we got to limit we don't want brain injuries. But yeah, sure, girl.
I love
go out here.
Exactly.
Yeah, go out here and play against guys. Because, it's normal. It's right. Thank God for Riley Gaines.
Yeah, no, our friend Riley Gaines back there on the poster. I love you bring up boxing, though, because no one in their right mind would ever say, okay, Mike Tyson is going to fight Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
A heavyweight against a welterweight.
Exactly.
Like,
they're just different.
We have different divisions, even for the greatest male fighters in the world. But all of a sudden, we're not going to have a partition between men and women's sports. I do want to ask, what did you think about Blaine's technique with his choke slam and lady ballers?
Be honest with me. Shoot me straight.
No, it was good. It was good. How many takes did he say he had to do, though?
Well, 11.
That got it wrong.
So that wasn't on me, though. I felt like it was more on her. The first one, she had to brace, didn't know. All right, because like when you go back to that trade, like that was real.
Yeah,
like she was getting slammed to the ground 11 times. 11 times. Look, I'm still working on it, but hopefully I can be part of the Brothers of Destruction.
No.
No, don't try and wiggle your way in.
Well, look, we'll talk about it.
Don't try and
We'll
just
talk
sneak.
about it.
I know what you do.
We'll talk about
like
it.
El Chapo, just burrow your way out of.
It's in the works.
But a lot of people don't know Blaine walked around in that outfit for the next 2 weeks. Tried to keep it. You were going to wear it for Halloween, weren't you?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Don't sell me short.
That pink.
I look good in pink wrestling outfits.
I'm going to be Kane for Halloween this year. I
I
already figured it out.
I may too.
You're not tall enough.
Whoa.
So that was highness. That was a highness.
Why?
I'm sorry.
Why do you have to do that to me?
Heightism is the thing now?
It is.
Heightism.
Oh, yes.
Heightism. I deal with it every day. I'm surprised you don't.
Ageism.
Yeah.
I know ageism.
I mean, you can like I didn't realize
I wish the heightism thing, like back when I was flying all the time, like 2 or 3 times a week. I wish the heightism had been a thing back then.
Well, now people are coming out saying that the plane seats have to be bigger, which I, for one, don't hate.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's the reasoning behind it.
It's the reasoning behind it. I don't like it. But if the outcome gets, and I'm about 6'1 3/4. I mean, I know you guys sitting on an airplane. What are you laughing about over there?
It's just the fact you have to say 6'1
and 3/4.
Right.
Well, I'm surrounded by giants, especially now.
I get it.
And one of them's a mayor.
I
All right, so I'm over 6. I'm like 5 inches over average. I'm gonna be the tallest guy in North Korea right now.
That is facts. That's big facts. I have to ask one more wrestling question because I don't get to do this every day.
Mayor Kane, I gotta ask you.
WWF, WCW, 2 different entities. I always wanted to see Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle Goldberg. Never got to see that, right? What was it like? Was there crossover with the other organization? Did you guys ever see each other? And who would have been the wrestler in WCW you would have most wanted to fight?
There wasn't crossover back in the day because we were 2 separate companies. Obviously, then WWE ended up buying WCW, so it was all incorporated together. Now, on a personal level, people would leave and come back and all that sort of stuff. So, but like formally, business-wise, there wasn't anything. It wasn't a WCW wrestler, but the person that I never got to wrestle or even meet that I wanted to would have been André the Giant. He passed away right when I was getting into the wrestling business, but that would have been the person that I would have liked to meet. And he was like 8 inches taller than me and
That is just,
150 pounds heavier, but actually, I guess at one point, 250 pounds heavier.
See, like,
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
That's
Well,
what
so you
guys-
said you never got to meet him, right? You never, but I'm sure the stories that you
Yes.
heard about it, like when you look at a picture of this guy's hand next to
Yeah.
a beer can, that's what did it.
They say you could put a $50 through his ring or something.
Yeah.
You hear all those stories
Right.
about him.
Is there one just Andre the Giant story that you remember that?
Yeah. So I was friends with Tim White, who was one of our referees, and he used to drive Andre back in the day. They had a specially made van for him.
Especially made
Yeah,
van.
yeah. So one day, and Andre is legendary. He's a very prodigious drinker, right? He could just, it didn't affect him. So, and he was also
bet.
so big.
Yeah.
So one night he's sitting at the bar and he's having a beer at the bar. And one of the guys was upset with him about something. This was a really big dude, like guy my size. So he walks up to Andre and just sucker punches him right in the side of the head. And
He sucker punched Andre the Giant?
And Andre drank another sip, put the beer down, turned to him and asked if he wanted to fight. Like,
Oh my God! There's not. Listen, I've heard of liquid courage,
Yeah.
but I've also heard of liquid death, and I know which side of the fence I would fall on. That's
terrifying.
fantastic. That's one of many of crazy Andre the Giant stories that we've heard. But Mayor Jacobs, also again world-renowned, famous wrestler Kane. Thanks for joining us, man. This has been absolutely unbelievable, and thanks for all that you've done and all that you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and I'll talk to Undertaker and
talk
see
to
if we
him
can arrange.
That's all you
No,
could ask
don't
for
worry
is a
about it.
lifeline. That's all you
No,
could
you
ask.
don't have
You
to.
better start doing push-ups right now.
I was thinking
Hold on.
about
Does it
my
help?
wrestling. I was thinking about my
How about this?
wrestling
If you could
nickname
picture
being
me like
the
this.
Dragon.
The Dragon.
What's your thoughts? You like that? Or?
Send him
That was
this
Ricky
photo.
Steamboat.
I know.
You can't be the
He
Dragon.
took it from
What about
me.
Flaming Dragon? What do you think about that? 2024.
He said, I'm never coming back here. By
Yeah,
the way.
no, we have Flaming Dragon Fridays when
Yeah.
here at Crane and Company. But no, again, man, thank you so much.
That looks good on you, Dad.
Thank you.
Definitely.
I know.
Subscribe, or I don't know, we may get the new Brother of Destruction, or maybe just the tall, weird neighbor of destruction.
Lanky
David
of
Cook.
destruction.
I'll see y'all later. Hello, YouTube. It's me once again, your fearless sports media friend, Jay Crane. Hit that subscribe button, because if not, maybe you really are as lame as what they called you in high school.